Hello. Um, okay. I had somebody, Roy Dobson, asked me about asymmetric harmonization process, and if I could explain this a little bit more. So try to get my face visible. There we go. Um eh, so the first of all, happy Valentine's Day to the ether. Um my camera's mirrored, so it's kind of wonky. All right, got my friendly goose behind me, my Freemason Shriner goose. So, basically, I'm just gonna chime in on Roy Dobson's recent video on somebody. I met Roy Dobson through the Doom, Eco Doom scene, and he also practices Advaita Vedanta meditation or philosophy. Um, so he was just did a commentary on how some famous academic on YouTube is brainwashed or whatever, which I totally agree with. So we were just chit chatting about that, and anyway, so I just had a couple comments about this unlearning process. Um, in terms of what is this asymmetric harmonic resonance as a philosophy of reality, and as far as how it can be as simple as you want it or as complicated as you want it. And I've tried to I've tried to make it as simple as possible using music theory, but as soon as you say music theory, people immediately jump to the wrong conclusions because they think, oh, I know music theory. That's simple. I've learned it. Learned some music theory, but they don't realize that that was all wrong. What they learned was wrong. And so anyway, uh, so then if you approach it, this concept of asymmetric harmonic resonance from physics, which is what I want to talk about right now. Um, I was reading about the difference between torque and energy. And so torque is a linear force in foot pounds, whereas energy is like a area as acceleration. And so you can use the same units of foot pounds for energy, but you're not, if you don't realize that you have to rely on a 90-degree difference in using vectors, then or it's either vectors or scalars. One of them is scalars and the other one's vectors. I think the energy is scalars. And anyway, so now, so you can, see how this gets confused or whatever. But in terms of the asymmetric harmonic resonance, I have a paper called "It's Neither a Scalar Nor a Tensor," um, and so or nor a vector. So it's what they call a spinor in quantum physics, a spinor. But one of the first things to realize is that in quantum physics, spin is neither a wave nor a particle. And so then people start to, if they really think about it, they have to wonder, well, what is spin, And there was another interesting point that a physics forum. I read the Quora forum for physics, but I don't agree with it. It's just a lot of interesting conversation about physics, and a lot of it I don't agree with, right? So one of the things they pointed out was that, for example, when they look at photons from outer space, from the distant universe, edge of the universe or whatever, that's because photons, being quantum, do not obey the inverse square law that you find with the electromagnetic field or with gravitation. So the photon is another example of this quantum, what they call, like a quantum jump. And so then there's this big debate that's been ongoing about what does the quantum jump really mean, and they call that the quantum measurement problem. And so um, if you look at the spinner, it's claimed that the photon only has a spin of one, but when you bring back in relativity in terms of physics, and you combine it with quantum physics, and this is what Louis de Broglie originally did when he realized that a particle can also be a wave, when the electron can also be a wave and not just a particle, just like the photon's a particle and not just a wave. So he was critiquing relativity when he derived the momentum of the um, of the electron as a wave. Um, so the what people don't realize is that when he was critiquing relativity, he realized there has to be this time reversed signal. Hello, I'm just like having a little Valentine chat with myself and you, and whoever else. Um, so anyway, so if you read Gerard de Hoof's paper with Martin van der Mark, yeah, it's exactly related to the speed of light. Okay, so they have this paper called "Light is Heavy," and Martin van der Mark, he's no longer alive, but um, well, like I was involved in the anti-gravity research scene on YouTube, and there, if you follow that scene at all, they're completely hung up on the speed of light. They're like, well, if we're gonna have anti-gravity, we have to figure out how to go faster than the speed of light. But the problem is that if you're defining force as a spatial measurement, then you're assuming time is also a spatial measurement, and that it's a symmetric spatial measurement. So this asymmetric harmonic resonance, it actually says that time and frequency are more fundamental than time as a spatial measurement. And when you realize, and this is the simple truth of music theory also that people don't realize. And so I just figured this out studying music on my own as a teenager. And I'm like, this has to be the truth of reality. And then I learned non-locality in quantum physics my first year of college, and I'm like, this is the same secret I figured out in music theory. But I couldn't like conceptualize the connection because I didn't know, it's like, well, am I just making this up or whatever? Then I got my undergraduate degree and I kept holding on to this idea. And then I went to graduate school and I kept holding on to the idea. I wrote my master's thesis on it, on music and physics and philosophy of science, and I still didn't quite grasp it. And then this guy who majored in physics and he published on music, and he's like, I want to publish your master's thesis, but I don't understand it. So I'm like, okay, well, I should read his book so to try to figure out why he doesn't understand my research. And then he explains that a fractal is not the Tai Chi symbol. Where are you having lunch in the middle of the night? You must be on the other side of the planet. Um, welcome to the interwebs. So anyway, where was I? What was I getting at this? Okay, so I had wrongly said in my master's thesis that the Tai Chi symbol was a logistic equation because I found some paper that said that, and it was like these Chinese scientists. And I thought, well, they must know what they're talking about. And then I realized, no, it's this simple truth of music theory that I had figured out, but that's also the truth of the Tai Chi and non-Western philosophy and whatever. And so at that point, I was done with my master's thesis, and I had discovered Alon Khan's work, and he talks about music theory, and he said the same. It's like the exact same concept, and I'm like, well, is he? Oh, no way! Wow. Thank you for thank you for joining in. I'm honored to have somebody at Los Alamos. I've been to Los Alamos, but not inside. I used to go to New Mexico every summer to Ghost Ranch. I would go to Ghost Ranch every summer, by Abiquiu. Anyway, I'm sure you've been to Abiquiu, right? So, okay. Um, all right. So what was I just totally spaced out? Okay. So, yeah. So I discovered Long Con, and I'm still like, well, maybe he's just being metaphorical, because it's just music theory, right? And then so finally, I kept researching this. I'm like, no, this is really this asymmetrical, process is the secret of the qigong training, as Nadon. And so then I discovered Eddie Ocean's working at the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center because I'm like, I at this point I realized it's non-commutativity, and I'm like, if I discovered this, then somebody else must have realized this, because I'm just one person doing my own research. And I kept searching and searching and searching online because I'm like, somebody had to discover this. I know somebody did. And I finally discovered Eddie Ocean's at Stanford Linear Accelerator Center, and his website, it doesn't link to any other website. It's just like this. It's all on its own, and he's not even alive anymore. And I'm like, he totally figured out. He's like, non-commutativity is the secret of non-Western meditation as Neigong, which is internal alchemy. Anyway, so then he collaborated with Lou Kaufman, who's a math professor, and he's famous in this, the science scene. Roasted quail, wow. Fig and balsamic. Oh, wait, I can say that. Balsamic. No, wait, balsamic. I've said the word before. Balsamic vinegar, balsamic. I can't say it right. I think it's my Minnesota accent. Scallops are yummy. We had scallops like a week ago. Balsamic vinegar, balsamic. Um, yeah, new no, that's another way of putting it because that's another hang up in the anti-gravity community. The anti-gravity research community, they're like, we need something that's off the shelf, that's we can engineer, that we can prove through experiments. But the whole point of non-commutativity is that as soon as you make a measurement, you're changing it. So how do you prove that in experiments? Well, this is where the what they call the weak measurement comes in, and so like I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, right? Because if you're into physics and all this, it's like you try to explain this to people and they don't want to hear it. But then you're like, no, actually, there is this research going on. Highly pressurized mechanized. Wow, wait, is that so was that's what became the TR-3B, wasn't it? I saw the TR-3B so close I could hit it with a rock, and then I corroborated, like, Ed Fouché's claims. I looked it up, and the military was researching mercury and as, connected to, superconducting mercury, and then, you know, so, for this was the Air Force, it's like, why would the Air Force be researching. So you were doing that research? Yeah. Was that classified research, or was it just in the Air Force, or wait, Los Alamos is part of the is that part of the Air Force now or the Navy? I don't know. The Hello. Okay, black budget, wow. Okay, so can you even say if that's what became the TR-3B? Can you corroborate Ed Fouché's claims? I mean, I have no way to, I have no way to corroborate your claims, but I'm just curious if that's what you think in terms of consistency of your story or whatever. Anyway, um okay, so if we consider, okay, all this, okay, like, okay, the Sonora Air Club, I think it's important to look at the larger context, because another thing about the anti-gravity community is they never talk about the ecological crisis and global warming. Now, if you read if you listen to Sir Roger Penrose, he will just mention in passing that he doesn't think that we're going to survive global warming. And why does he say that? Is because he points out that gravitational entropy is the opposite of the entropy of matter, and just that simple point, it's over the heads of, like, he says that no other physicists are focused on the fact that the origin of the universe was from um, asymmetric time that is highly coherent and has a and its gravitational potential energy. Okay, yeah, yeah, all right. Right. So my point is that um, even Roger Penrose, he admits that non-commutativity is the foundation of reality, and that's the truth of gravitational potential energy from quantum negentropy as anti-gravity. And he's saying that that's what exists after the end of the acceleration of the universe and before the Big Bang, and it's just pure time with no spatial dimension at all. It has no size. And he's like, the rest of physicists are ignoring this. But even Penrose admits he's not good at non-commutativity. Now, he's published a paper on non-commutative math. On non-commutativity. He co-authored it with a non-commutative. The what is love? That's a good question on Valentine's Day. Um, okay, Chun Yulin says this is. I wanted to talk about this actually. Chun Yulin says that he's only mentioned once, the Qigong master Chun Yulin, that the emptiness is beyond even the feeling of love. And so he says that unconditional love is actually action. It's this harmonization action. Now, why is that? Like if you like Einstein said the most important question of the universe is the universe friendly? And Louis de Broglie said that the law of phase harmonization is this superluminal, time reversed process. And so in internal alchemy, what happens is that when you're born and you start breathing, there's a disconnection from the original, like, unified energy, what they call Wan Qi, which is the cosmic Qi, or it's also called prenatal Qi. And when you start breathing, your spirit moves up to your heart, and then your life force moves down to below the navel. And so as soon as you are born, it starts to separate. Now, when you're younger, you have still a connection. Like as you get older, it separates more and more. And so that becomes what people think of as love, as actually this separation, and your spirit is coming out of your heart. But in terms of alchemy, what's required is that you put the spirit back under your life force in order to create the lower dantian, which is then this like worm. It's this quantum wormhole that then is the truth of love, as unconditional love, as a harmonization action from the future. So you're literally like reversing the time of your spirit back to your eternal soul that exists in this pure realm of time and frequency. And that's the truth of love, as unconditional love, instead of like love as passion or overexcitement or whatever. So it's still love. It's just like a deeper level of love. Um, Yeah, yeah, it's explained in the book Taoist Yoga, Alchemy, and Immortality, and it's like I missed that explanation. I didn't really, because there's so much information packed into that book, and it wasn't until I reread it recently that I noticed that that it points this out, this deeper secret, and so um you know if you understand that basic secret, then you're well, that's one that's one view. Anyway, so that's pretty much all I wanna say, say because I got to, get ready for get ready for sleep. I got class in the morning. You guys can join my class if you want to. Yeah, well, we have an ecological crisis, as Roger Penrose points out. That's the true cause of our ecological crisis. It's science. Science created our ecological crisis. We can reverse our situation. We can use science to reverse reality. Hey, thanks. I'm glad you're part of the class and enjoying the class at the same time. Yeah, in terms of Taoist alchemy, passion is actually the lung energy, and it's also called the Po soul, and it's the lung energy is metal, and then it creates the kidney energy, which is water, and so you reverse that in alchemy. So you're using the passion to then the metal to then increase your water, and Um, so the lungs are yang qi and the kidneys is yin qi. It's all very like interrelated, and it's all like complementary opposites. And thanks, you too. Yeah, fat spliff. I was in a band called Fred, spelled Phed, so I can relate. All right, everybody have a good night, and thanks for the fun Valentine's Day chit chat. I think I said everything pretty much. Yeah, pretty much said everything I wanted to say. Oh, he retracted all his messages. People are being very secretive. All right, good night. Happy Happy Lent, Valentine's Day. Later. Good night.